We've all seen the clips of Cardi B, Pink, Adele, Harry Styles, and other performers getting pelted by audience members. Many times when we think of audiences behaving badly, we think this is like the end of Western civilization as we know it. And in fact, actually, in the United States, especially 100, 200 years ago, even if you were playing a Beethoven concerto or singing an opera aria or something more lowbrow, audience members back then resorted to throwing things to express their displeasure at an alarming level in ways that today's performers can only imagine. So if you went to any kind of performance in the early 19th century, that is to say 200 years ago, whether it was Shakespeare, whether it was an opera, whether it was popular music, you name it, you would have been shocked probably by today's standards to see audience behavior, because people talked during performance, they ate things during performances, so much so that you could hear them. But above all, they tended to get involved in the performance in ways that contemporary performers would not like. That included when they liked the performance, they might sing along and drown out performers, which many singers today would take offense at. I am my mother's child, I love you. But if they didn't like a performance, they liked to throw things. And the great vehicle of dramatic criticism was objects like an egg, or better yet, rotten vegetables. Or if you really didn't like a performance, a dead animal would suffice. In other words, you would throw a dead goose, a dead cat, something that was really nasty, and you would try to pelt the performer. And this was considered totally normal. In other words, American audiences resorted to this and would oftentimes drive performers from the stage if they decided that they didn't like the performance and the level or quality of the performance. Or if they took some offense, silly as it may be, so for example, the nationality. They might drown out a British singer by singing Yankee Doodle Dandy at the top of their lungs and then unleash a fusillade of vegetables at them. Recently, Adele lectured her audience about audience etiquette.
Have you noticed how people are like forgetting show etiquette at the moment? People are throwing it on stage. Have you seen that?
And the idea that audiences should behave to a certain code of etiquette is actually a product of something that happened about 150 years ago when elites, like very wealthy people who were tired of getting their performances interrupted by projectiles, started to build their own like theater halls and operas, and within those sacred precincts began to demand that audiences not do certain things, like applaud during a musical number.
Applause is not usually permitted at court performances. Why not? It was wonderful. Clap, clap, clap.
Like you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait to the end. Don't talk, don't eat. Even crazy things like women who wore big hats were like escorted out of an opera hall because they were blocking people's view. And so they started policing this. And this might have remained a kind of narrow thing, but it became actually a cultural norm in everything. The issues and the changes in audiences go beyond throwing things or, as we say, behaving badly. And lately there have been audiences attending Barbie or Oppenheimer, and people have complained that the audiences are doing things they didn't normally do in the past.
Audience were clapping before even the Barbie movie starts.
What the But again, this is something that's an artifact of relatively recent changes in audiences. 150 years ago, audiences didn't view performances as something that they watched passively. They would join in. Sometimes, like a theatrical performance, they would get on the stage with the actors and like cheer them on, for example. Or start hollering from the balcony. They would start yelling violent threats against the fictional actor. So this was all very normal and very typical, and people expected it. And so the idea that people are doing things in theaters and breaking down the boundary between audience and entertainment is actually a return to a much older tradition of how we consume popular culture.